Welcome everyone to episode 11 of the Wrestling Matters podcast. My name is Anthony Walker, as you well know. You know that by now. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk about the main points of Monday Night Raw, Smackdown and TNA, plus a few shoutouts and yes, another pipe bomb and a goodbye this week as well. But more on that later. I'll kick off the show this week though because I got some news, bulletins this week, breaking news that happened on June 12th of 2014 that 9 superstars were released from the WWE. Now, the 9 superstars being the following: Yoshitatsu, Brodus Clay, Camacho, Evan Bourne, Matt Sydal, Theodore Long, Kurt Hawkins, Axana, we got that wrong, and yes, positive out of this, ladies and gentlemen, is 3MGOB and no more, because along with them that I've just read out, Jinder Mahal got released, and unfortunately, Drew McIntyre got released also. And you know what? I'll pipe bomb that later on about Drew McIntyre and how I feel later on in the show. But those 9, and that is, I read from courtesy of NoDQ.com with Aaron Rift. Make sure you check that out, NoDQ.com. Like I said, make sure you check that website out. It's a good website. And yeah, those 9 unfortunately got released. Let's face it, I haven't seen Yoshitatsu wrestle in a while. Probably wrestled on NXT. Evan Bourne, injury prone. Last time he wrestled was on NXT to make sure he could still do it, but it didn't work. Brodus Clay, last time he was relevant, was wrestling Adrian Neville for the NXT title. I believe it was Adrian Neville. He wrestled someone for the NXT title anyway, and he hasn't done anything since he split up from Tensai and dumped the dancers. Camacho, last time I saw him, he was getting his butt whooped by the creepy Adam Rose. Ugh. Theodore Long. God, when was the last time he was relevant? When was the last time I saw him? I think the last time I saw him was when he was having that feud with John Laurinaitis. Oh, Funkman himself, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong. Kurt Hawkins hadn't done nothing since, well, he was probably on NXT. Axana was a jobber, if you will. Last time I saw her, she was getting beat by Paige. And don't get me started on Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre. Like I said, I'll talk about Drew McIntyre later on and my opinion of how WWE dropped the ball with him, so to speak. Like I said, that'll be later on. Now we'll go to Monday Night Raw main points. We kick off Monday Night Raw with something that was going to the Monday Night Raw main points with something that was going to happen eventually. It was just a case of when. Daniel Bryan is no longer the World Heavyweight Champion. It's official. Daniel Bryan's WWE World Heavyweight Championship reign is no more. Despite optimistic reports of the Champion of Champions recovery heading into the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, Dr. Joseph Maroon, the Vice Chairman of the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center and the surgeon who performed Daniel's neck surgery, relayed the news of the slower than expected recovery. In response, Stephanie McMahon stripped Daniel Bryan of the World Championship. Triple H then entered Randy Orton into Money in the Bank, now to be contested for the vacated title. I'll get to that later on, how I feel about that later on. With a bit of business to conclude, the game took the opportunity to address the fate of the Shield's remaining 2 members, having convinced Seth Rollins to turn them from the fold. Triple H immediately placed Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns into a 6-man tag team match against the Wyatt family. The catch? They could choose whoever the heck they want as a partner, and we all find out later on who that partner was. Money in the Bank qualifier match. The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow may be 2 titles for Sheamus, who prevailed over the Intercontinental Champion Bad News Barrett to secure a spot in Money in the Bank to determine the next World Heavyweight Champion. Barrett asserted his way to the ring that he would scale the heights to the supreme prize and never come back down. But he was met with the stiff resistance from the Stars and Stripes Sporting Irishman in the form of the early 10 beats that Sheamus likes to deliver. I'm guessing that's the 10 beats where he puts you on the ropes, he gets his opponent on ropes and starts beating the crap out of you from the beats thing, which is, well, as I said, it's a move I wouldn't like to be on the receiving end of. Despite the brawling offense of the Fighting Irishman, the Intercontinental Champion was able to muscle his way back into contention with a Wild Winds of Change move, which is the Bossman Slam, and the back catalog resurrection of the Wasteland. Barrett took a leaf out of Sheamus's book with a flurry of fists and a headbutt that knocked the Celtic loopy. Thankfully, it only takes one burst to connect with a bro kick. Punchy Sheamus was able to do that, putting the boot to Barrett's mug to book his place in Boston for the Money in the Bank. Alberto Del Rio, Sheamus, and Randy Orton are in Money in the Bank. Question is, who's next? The Shield may be one man down, but the Hounds of Justice still have plenty to bark left, disposing of would-be party crashers 3MB. Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns seize the microphone to address the traitor that is Seth Rollins and the state of their rivalry with the Authority going forward. As it turns out, neither Ambrose nor Reigns was in a mood for explanations, just retribution. When I get the opportunity to rearrange your face, I will. I'm gonna rip your dirty, stinking hair out by the roots, promised Ambrose. You scum of the earth, followed Reigns, who also promised to get his hands on Randy Orton. But he saved his final warning for Triple H, promising his own Game of Thrones for the King of Kings. What's next for the Shield? I'm thinking there's gonna be a match between Roman Reigns and Triple H for SummerSlam. I'd like to see that. In 3 weeks, Paul Heyman might just be introducing his client as the new World Heavyweight Champion. For the benefit of the people in Minnesota, the very state where Brock Lesnar competed as a college wrestler, the mad scientist's latest charge, Cesaro, defeated Paul Heyman's old crony, Rob Van Dam, to earn his way into his second consecutive ladder match at Money in the Bank. Granted, the stakes are much higher for this contest, and the King of Swing fought with an appropriate intensity to ensure his place in Boston. RVD didn't exactly hold back on his pursuit over the victory either, kicking Cesaro in the head all the way across the ring. The Swiss Superman countered by reversing Rolling Thunder into a very European uppercut and didn't let up from there, cranking RVD's legs against the turnbuckle to ground the former WWE champion and following with a neutralizer that is well and truly money, and granted him his place in Boston at Money in the Bank. Well, enough about the poor Mr. Ambrose and Mr. Reigns into the rich and purpose Mr. Rollins, breaking his silence with a sit-down interview alongside Michael Cole. The Hounds of Justice turncoat did just that, with a demure as snug as a black-on-black suit he wore to the ring. Rollins defended his right to destroy his own creation and denounced the lunatic Ambrose and the Golden Boy Roman Reigns as inferior competitors who ride his coattails to his success. Rollins also revealed he subscribed wholeheartedly to Triple H's adapt or perish philosophy and hadn't so much sold out as bought into a better opportunity than the business relationship he had with the Shield. Having said his words, Rollins dared the Shield to make good on their earlier promise to make him eat them. But the Arias took flight when they timely arrived of the Wyatts, provided him cover for a quick escape. It took none other than John Cena to even the odds and send the Wyatts scurrying, which led to the upside. Looks like the Shield found themselves a partner for later in the night. And speaking of that same match, maybe the C Nation and the Hounds of Justice should have joined forces sooner. Despite the stiff resistance the Wyatts met from the impromptu tame of their most recent enemies, the unlikely allies provided every bit as dominant. The unlikely allies proved every bit as dominant as the original recipe Shield had been not 2 weeks ago. Dean Ambrose shouldered the majority of the load early on, starting against Eric Rowan by throwing punches at Luke Harper and Bray Wyatt as well. The Eater of Words has brewed wisely, let the lunatic fringe punch himself out, and held strong once Cena finally entered the fray. Bray Wyatt, no. The longer the sheep herd in the Valley of the Darkness, but rather reborn as a destroyer, all but feasted on the C Nation leader. But it was Roman Reigns, as ever, who provided to be the equalizer when he cut Luke Harper down with a massive spear. If the victory served as a warning to Seth Rollins, it's safe to say the turncoat, observing on the monitor with Triple H backstage, got the message loud and clear. That's it from the Raw main points. Now on to the TNA main points. Impact main points. Impact opens with a video recap of MVP's rise to power and the formation of his alliance, Bobby Lashley and Kenny King. The TNA World Heavyweight Champion Eric Young enters the Impact Zone to the hype his upcoming match with MVP. MVP enters with Bobby Lashley and Kenny King. MVP tells Eric Young that he's a world-class athlete. At the upcoming Slammiversary pay-per-view, he'll be becoming the new World Heavyweight Champion. Eric Young demands respect and has one simple request: a fair fight. MVP says a fair fight at Slammiversary is not guaranteed, but that Eric Young may pick the stipulation for the match if he can beat two of them tonight, which means Eric Young will have to run the gauntlet, and if he can beat two members of the group, he will pick that stipulation. If not, well, back to the drawing board. Speaking of the two members of that fight, the first match he had was straight after, and that match was against Bobby Lashley. The bell sounds immediately when Impact returns. Eric Young slides out of the ring to fight Bobby Lashley. Lashley changes the momentum and begins to dominate Young with a series of spears. As Young begins mounting some offense, he is overpowered and tossed from the ring by the powerful Lashley. Lashley's onslaught continues outside the ring until he's ready to make a pin attempt. Eric Young kicks out and quickly finds himself in a series of back-breaking submission holds, including the torture. Eric Young reverses the second backbreaker and scores a series of near falls. Eric goes for a diving assault from the top rope, but is captured by Lashley and pinned. Following the dominate, Bobby Lashley wins. Bobby Lashley's post-match assault is somewhat stopped when Samoa Joe rushes to the ring to make the save. I smell Bobby Lashley versus Samoa Joe somewhere down the road. Magnus and Bram enter the arena. Bram introduces Magnus, the most brutal man I know growing up. Magnus talks about his return to a more brutal previous version of himself. Bram says, unlike Magnus, Jeff Hardy needs an alter ego to believe in himself. Willow's crackle sounds through the arena as he enters. Willow says, I am out here giving you a chance to run. I am dangerous. I am from Jeff Hardy's imagination. Where Jeff Hardy can't go, I go. Willow's hype his match with Magnus at Slammiversary and promises victory with someone in his corner. Willow says a riddle. A joke riddle, if you will. Knock knock. Crowd shout, who's there? The who? The Monster Abyss. Willow and Abyss storm and clear the ring, sending Magnus and Bram up the ramp to regroup. Looks like Magnus may have his hands full with his old crony Abyss at Slammiversary. In from a commercial break, Christy Hemme introduces the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Eric Young, Kenny King's out next. Eric Young and Kenny King lock up and King takes the early advantage. The two trade the advantage until King nails an unorthodox kick, sending the champ to the mat. Despite mounting some offense, Kenny King hits Young with a spinning slam, then boosts I Told You as he taunts Eric Young and the audience. King attempts and misses a springboard dive, allowing Eric Young to capitalize. Young drops King with a power driver and picks up the 1, 2, 3. So he's 1 for 1 in that respect. So that leaves MVP left. Speaking of MVP is out first. Mike Tenay details MVP's conversation with Brian Hebner. There will be no interference once the bell rings to signal the start of the match. Eric Young makes his way into the impact zone for a third time. Young's entrance is interrupted by an attack from Kenny King and Bobby Lashley. Lashley slams Eric Young into the steel steps, then tosses him into the ring. The bell sounds. When Impact returns from the commercial, MVP is easily in control as the crowd roots loudly for the TNA Heavyweight Champion of the world. MVP maintains control, but Eric Young powers out of the pin attempt. MVP locks in a camel clutch, releases the hold, then taunts the champion and the audience. MVP powerbombs Eric Young onto the mat, then delivers a second powerbomb into the corner turnbuckle. MVP makes 3 pin attempts and Eric Young kicks out each time. And last possible moment, frustrated, MVP grabs a chair and assaults Eric Young with it. Eric Young wins by disqualification. Post-match, MVP says he doesn't care what the stipulation is at Slammiversary. He will become the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. MVP poses with a title belt before beginning his exit. Eric Young grabs the microphone and says the match that he wants and will get at Slammiversary, thanks to his win over 2 matches out of the 3 with MVP and his goons. The match upcoming at Slammiversary will be a steel cage Age match. And the champion exclaims, "I'm just as crazy though." What will happen at Slammiversary? We'll have to tune in to find out. Exclusively on pay-per-view. Coming up, the TNA main points. To the Smackdown points, ladies and gentlemen, the main talking points. And amped up, Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns kicked off Smackdown this week, promising to take out the WWE COO Triple H. Shut down the Seth Rollins business for good, and maybe even bit Randy Orton to the world title in the World Heavyweight Championship ladder match. However, Triple H soon interrupted, pointing out that there will only be so many spots in the unpredicted ladder match, or unpreceded ladder match, whatever it says there, before flipping a coin to see which Shield member would get the opportunity to qualify on SmackDown. After Ambrose won the toss, Game announced that he would be in a qualifying SmackDown main event match against Bray Wyatt. Not wanting Roman Reigns to feel left out, Triple H also put him in a match against Bad News Barrett. Both the hounds would be banned from each other's contests. And speaking of the Roman Reigns match, with Ambrose barred from ringside, 3MB opted to interrupt the ultra-explosive match between Roman Reigns and the Intercontinental Champion Bad News Barrett, and Reigns would make them pay for it. Rallying back from the triple forced that caused the referee to call for the bell, the Shield powerhouse proceeded to hurl Jinder Mahal over the announce table and then delivered a spear to Drew McIntyre, and even more devastating second time around to Heath Slater when he caught him in mid-air, as his adversity was leaping at him from the steel steps. Meaning Heath Slater jumped off the steel steps looking to attack Roman Reigns, except he jumped right into a spear. You can't keep the beast. That's why he's the Shield's muscle. After translating Cesaro's foreign address to the WWE Universe, which apparently promised that the Swiss Superman would punish the United States Champion until the referee was forced to stop the match, Paul Heyman dropped back to watch his client in an all-out fight. And despite the outspoken advocate previous criticism of the Celtic Warrior had used a very Greco-Roman small package in a fight to defeat the King of Swing at WWE Payback, that didn't stop the winner of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal from utilizing that very same move to pick up a huge non-title SmackDown victory. Question is, it seems that Cesaro is in line for another shot at the US belt, but one thing is definitely for sure in that match on SmackDown, guys: Cesaro got a dose of payback. And the SmackDown main event that saw Dean Ambrose one-on-one with Bray Wyatt. In the height of the intense SmackDown main event in which both Wyatt family and Roman Reigns were barred from ringside, Ambrose hit Wyatt with dirty deeds, but before he could attempt a pinfall, the exhausted lunatic friend spotted Rollins standing on top of the announce table. Choosing to put his full attention on the pursuing ex-Shield member, Ambrose ran head on into Wyatt's sister Abigail. With the follow-up 3 count, the Eater of Words earned a place in the Money in the Bank, ladder match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the SmackDown, TNA and Raw main points. I will be back after this quick commercial with a pipe bomb and my thoughts on all the 9 wrestlers that were released, including Drew McIntyre. So I'll be back right after this, and listen out for this as well, because this is a new promo that I've created in where you can find the Wrestling Matters podcast and what sites to go to. So make sure you stay tuned if you want to download or listen to the Wrestling Matters podcast. With that being said, ladies and gents, I will be back right after this. Stay tuned.
Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change. Are you ready?
It is Sunday, and you're listening to the Sunday Segue Wrestling Podcast.
Give me a hell yeah! Get some love! Ooh, yeah!
With Kenny Killer.
Hey, yo! We're in the big D tonight, baby, and we are live! Woo!
I'm the Goddamn Sugar Shoe.
The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be! Content's the bottom line! to Stone Cold Simpson.
Download the Sunday Segue Wrestling Podcast now at iTunes. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Anthony Walker, the host of the Wrestling Matters Podcast, and you can now check out the Wrestling Matters Podcast on youtube.com/HAW Wrestling Matters. You can now go to Podomatic.com, iTunes, and now also you can go to a new one. That's right, a new site, Stitcher Radio. That's right, we're on Stitcher Radio right now. I'm on Stitcher Radio right now, and you could be too. Get yourself on there, download their app, the Stitcher Radio app, or the Stitcher app, whatever it is. Make sure you download their app, and you can listen to it on your phone anywhere you want, at any time you want, at any place you. That's the Wrestling Matters Podcast now on YouTube, iTunes, Podomatic, and Stitcher Radio. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans.
In anybody else's hands, this is a microphone. In my hands, it's a pipe bomb.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Wrestling Matters Podcast. And yes, as you heard after that commercial, it is now time for probably my favorite part of the show now, the pipe. Now, I want to pipe bomb the upcoming Money in the Bank show. And I want to congratulate WWE for poor booking, in my opinion. A couple of weeks ago, you had WWE, you had Alberto Del Rio compete, and I think I mentioned this on previous podcasts. You had him compete in a one match on Raw Money in the Bank qualifier. Oh my god, you do not realize this guy is probably leaving, or unless you've forgotten that he's going to be leaving the company soon once his contract expires. So that's a little bit predictable in a way, that Alberto Del Rio will not be winning the Money in the Bank because of his contract expiring. And if this is your, somewhat attempt to try and smooth him, push him enough so he can stay in the company, then I hate to break the news to you, it's not working. Because I think anyone who's been vocal, like Mr. Del Rio, like he was back in February, saying that he's leaving, I think he's going to be leaving the company. He may not, he may change his mind, but if he does change his mind, I don't think it'll be because of what you do. I think it'll be because of what is best for him, not best for you. And as well, besides all that, I think this is going to be a very short pipe bump, but I'll get it in there nonetheless. This World Heavyweight Championship. Granted, you had to strip Daniel Bryan. Well done, Triple H. Well done, Authority. You've got what you want. But granted, you had to strip him of the belt. What I don't get is you've ruined the mystique of Money in the Bank, so to speak. What do I mean by a mistake? There's no briefcase on the line. Yes, granted, the World Heavyweight Championship will be on the line, and that's Money in the Bank itself. But I think many of us, most of the fans, want to see who carries that briefcase, who's going to win the briefcase, and then cash it in. But you've ruined that now, because unless there is a second match for the briefcase, which I highly unlikely there will be, you've basically ruined it now, and you may as well, since of what you've done, you may as well change the Money in the Bank pay-per-view name and call it, I don't know, ladder match or something. I don't know. You can't call it Money in the Bank because they're not competing for the Money in the Bank briefcase. They're competing for the World Heavyweight Championship. So I can understand what you wanted to have a world champion, but this is what you could have done, WWE. The minute you stripped Daniel Bryan of the World Championship belts, right? You could have had a WWE Battle Royal to determine who would be the world champion. And then you could have took that world champion and found an opponent for him, and you could have built up what was left to go into Money in the Bank to compete, and then you would have had a World Championship match, no ifs, no problem. And then you could have had that Money in the Bank where they were challenging for the briefcase, I mean, it hasn't stopped you from doing this before. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you have a Smackdown World Heavyweight Championship Battle Royal? The winner becomes the World Heavyweight Champion, or the World Champion back then. Did you not think that? Or don't you remember that? I mean, last time you had one, if I remember correctly, I believe Edge was stripped of the belt, the one I'm familiar with at least. Edge was stripped of the belt, and you had the Great Khali as World Champion. I mean, some bright spot came up with an idea. Oh yeah, let's put this 7 foot, over 7 foot beast, the Great Khali, as World Champion. Now granted, that was probably good for him, because he was meant to be a monster, and be a monster heel. But was he a great champion? No, at least not to me anyway. He was a good champion, but he wasn't a great champion. And that title reign lasted up till Unforgiven of that year, where Batista ended up winning the World Championship match, back in a triple threat match, which I believe was him, Great Khali, and Rey Mysterio, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But I want to know is this: who is booking in WWE? Because whoever it is, it's not doing a very good. You're not doing a very good job at this moment, okay? The booking to a point is good, but there's bad ideas involved. And you can't fool the audience by making it predictable, because you've already made the ladder match predictable. Because we all know Alberto Del Rio, or anyone with a brain knows, that Alberto Del Rio will not be winning the Money in the Bank ladder match. All I'm saying is, WWE, is please sort this out. If I'm being predictable right now, the predictable thing is Randy Orton will be walking out as world champion. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but it seems that you've set that up for him to be world champion since you put him in the ladder match anyway without qualifying. So Daniel Bryan gets stripped, and then we'll go back to square one. This is your opportunity to put the belt back on Randy Orton. It's rubbish. I hope it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, in my opinion, you've royally fucked up. You've already fucked up with the ladder match, because it's not Money in the Bank. Well, it's not for Money in the Bank. If Randy Orton wins, it's royally fucked up anyway. That's nothing against Orton, but it makes no sense. Give it to someone that deserves it, like a Bray Wyatt or somebody. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Bray Wyatt as world champion, to be honest. As long as Randy Orton doesn't win, and like I say, it's nothing on Randy Orton, I'm actually a fan of Orton, but as long as Randy Orton doesn't win, then you might get away with it. But I think everybody's going to be predicting right now, including me, that Randy Orton will be world champ after Money in the Bank, and it's disgraceful. Anyway, I digress. Now, the last thing I want to say before I go into the shoutouts, Drew McIntyre got released as one of the 9. Congratulations, WWE, because boy did you royally fuck up with him, okay? You bring him in, this Scotsman, you know, this great looking wrestler. He was a great wrestler. You brought him in as the chosen one. Vince McMahon brought him in as the chosen one. You know, he was going to be the next big thing. He was going to be the next champion. You bring him in, you have him on Smackdown, you put him in as the Intercontinental Champion. That was a great move, because he was a great Intercontinental Champion. He had a couple of runs with it, maybe more, I don't know. He had feuds with Matt Hardy, and he had a rivalry as well with Kofi Kingston, as well as Teddy Long, Theodore Long, who was also released this week. And then you block that out the way. This guy had a great entrance. Out of time, so say goodbye. What is yours? Now is mine. That one. Unbelievable entrance. You hear that, and then goes, what's that? Dun, 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 dun. And then the intro, and then it goes, out of time, and you see him walking out with the entrance. It was a beautiful entrance. Absolutely superb entrance. Then you take that entrance away from him and bring in some second-rate entrance that you probably have created. Now, don't get me wrong, it was good, but first entrance was better. That was the slow downfall. Then you put him in a tag team with Cody Rhodes. Now, don't get me wrong, Cody Rhodes, great tag team wrestler. He's proven that. Great Intercontinental Champion in his own right, and these two made a great tag team. They really did, and they were tag team champions. And then that fell apart. And then his personal life, and this is what I've heard, I don't know if this is true or not, I believe it is. This guy competes. This guy marries, I believe, Tyrene Terrell, who was the ECW general manager at one point. The WWE regurgitated crap, or it turned out to be the regurgitated shit from WWE. She was the ECW GM, the female ECW GM. Now, apparently them two behind the scenes fell in love and then got married, and then it went on from there, fair dues, and then them two, and then it came down to a point, and I don't know what the hell happened, and I don't care. They split up, they get a divorce, and then she ends up leaving for TNA, and apparently, whatever she's supposed to have done, you put the blame on Drew McIntyre. You punished Drew McIntyre for it, because apparently it was something that she done, I don't know what it was, but you put the blame not on her, but you thought, oh no, she's gone to TNA, oh yeah, who can we put the blame on? Oh, we'll put the blame on her ex-husband. I don't know if that was true or not, but it sounded that way, because you didn't half punish him, didn't you? You dropped the ball with him, and then you go and put him in this ridiculous group called 3MB, 3-man band, which consisted of 3 jobbers, or which turned into 3 jobbers, quite frankly. Heath Slater, poor bastard, hadn't been relevant since Nexus and Core, when he was tag team champions with Justin Gabriel, okay, and he wasn't doing very well on his own, but he was trying to beat all these legends, and eventually did beat a legend, but except the legend that he beat was Doink the Clown, for crying out loud. But up until this point, he wasn't relevant, so he was on the verge of getting his future endeavours, but apparently he can get his future endeavours now, from what I've heard, because apparently his wife, or his girlfriend, is having a baby, so that's out the blue. Jinder Mahal, last time I saw him in anything big, apparently I think he wrestled for the NXT Championship at one point. I believe it was against Seth Rollins, if I remember correctly, but he wrestled for the NXT title nonetheless. He ain't done nothing up until that point, because the last time he did anything relevant up until that point, he was basically Great Khali's bitch, and Great Khali was bouncing him around, and he hadn't done nothing up until he got the NXT Championship match that he had. And then, what do you guys decide to do with him? Exactly the same. No. Future endeavours, no. Let's give him a shot. let's put him in this group with 3MB. And then you bring in Drew McIntyre. Why you put Drew McIntyre in this group for, I do know. But like I say, it was punishment. And you put him in the group, and you turned Drew McIntyre from being the chosen one to the chosen joke. Oh my God, WWE, did you drop the ball? And if you hadn't to put these three together, or if somebody had to come up with the idea to put these three together and form 3MB, these would have been out on their ear before you released them, or released two of them during this list of release that you've done. These 9 superstar release thing that you've done. I mean, they never did anything, 3MB, and that's the only positive sign out of these 9 releases as well, is 3MB is now no more, because you got rid of Jinder Mahal and you got rid of Drew McIntyre. And the rest don't bother me, because, you know, the kind of, I don't remember seeing half of any of them, but Drew McIntyre had all the potential in the world to be a world champion. He was a tag team champion and then a Continental champion. He had a great feud with Matt Hardy. He had an even better, you know, boss versus, you know, wrestler rivalry with Theodore Long on SmackDown, you know, manipulating him and whatnot. Kofi Kingston as well, he had a good rivalry with him. He was a great tag team champion with Cody Rhodes. They were a great team. And then you push him all the way down the pecking order and put him like this. And now you've released him. You've dropped the ball with him, WWE, and it sickens me. Even Bret Hart was a fan of him. I remember Bret Hart tweeting about it and saying that you were wasting his talent. And now he's right. You wasted his talent. I just hope now he's being released from WWE. I just hope he can go to another organization, maybe Ring of Honor, maybe TNA, I don't know, and use the talent that he has that you didn't pick up on. It's a shame, WWE. It really is a shame. And I'll get to Drew McIntyre later on. More about Drew McIntyre later on. Now we go from that to the shoutouts, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, I can't do this. The following people are, in my opinion, what you should be following on Twitter, and I recommend you guys to follow these guys on Twitter because they're absolutely superb. Well, at least they are to me anyway. At Axel Mulligan on Twitter, Darren Dyer hosts his own show, Axel Analysis. Check that out. If you haven't checked it out, you need to go and check it out, and check out his channel as well. All the links will be in the description. It's a great show. Yesterday he released a new episode, so make sure you check that out as well. Yeah, it's just a great show. He covers NXT. He's got great opinions, and I don't know if he's a well-educated wrestler like myself or more of an educated wrestler like me, but other than that, that doesn't matter. He is an educated wrestling fan, and you know what? I like people like that. My boys at Sunday Segue, Kenny Killer, and the goddamn Sugar Shugs, and make sure you follow Shugs on Twitter as well, at Shugs on Twitter, I think it is. I'll have to check that. I believe it is. I'll put the link in the description. He's the hashtag tech guy, so you can't miss that. And yeah, guys, you know, nothing but love for them. Couldn't be cooler dudes. Proud to be on their shows. I'll be on their show this Sunday for the rearranged Beat the Clock match, because apparently a certain somebody and a certain opponent that I'm supposed to be facing got the times wrong, so they had to rearrange it. Seems to me that someone's getting a little bit nervous, right, Big Evil? Anyway, I digress. The MC Cook, again, another educated wrestling fan, another good guy to talk about. You should go and follow him. He's great. He's a wrestling fan, a good educated wrestling fan. He knows his stuff and he knows what he's talking about, and he's good to talk to on Twitter as well. Great guy. At Vicky Earls, follow her channels, her YouTube channels or channel in the description. Again, links will be in there as always. Irish Commodity, I believe her nickname is. Sweet girl. Yeah, top lass, mint lass, and you should follow her on Twitter, and you should follow her on her YouTube pages as well, and I guarantee you will not regret it. Top Rope Elbow Steve Dawson, which could be my opponent if I beat Big Evil, and if that is the case, Steve, you're next, but I have to get past Big Evil first. I don't know if that'll... I am a little nervous about that match, to be honest with you, considering that it was rearranged and everything. That's made it a little, you know, what's going on. There's really tricks being pulled, but hopefully there won't be, and hopefully I'm very confident that I will surpass Big Evil and face Steve Dawson in the next round. But go and follow him on Top Rope Elbow. He's a awesome guy, good guy, well-educated wrestling fan, very opinionative, sensible opinions as well, not some stupid opinions that I've got on previous times that I've looked on Twitter. All these guys, all these people you should follow on Twitter anyway, because the wrestling fans, and you know, they have their, you know, they have smart opinions. They don't have douchebag, dumbass opinions like most other people that I know or that I've come across anyway. But yeah, go and follow Steve Dawson, Top Rope Elbow, great guy. And he's a hell of a wrestling fan, a hell of a guy, wrestling fan also as well, which is one of the reasons why I like the guy. At James Powers, Head of Fan Relations, James Powers 33. at JamesPowers33. He's the head of fan relations on Sunday Segue. He has his own show, James's Wrestling Rambles. I was on it a couple of weeks ago, had a blast with Mr. President as well, at Mr. President on Twitter. Go and follow him. Professor Mike, you know who he is. Like I said, I'll put the link in the description. Awesome guy, just a all-round good guy basically, and he knows his wrestling, so you should go and follow him. And he does a great show and a good job on his James's Wrestling Ramble podcast show on YouTube, Podomatic, and wherever else they fucking can go. Like I said, links will be in the description. Speaking of my opponent, I'll get to that in a minute. Make sure you follow Vicious Rants YouTube page, Tim Vicious, at Tim Vicious on Twitter, and at Tim_Vicious as well. If he uses that, I don't know if he does, but I know he uses the at Tim Vicious on Twitter. Make sure you go and follow this guy. This guy's a cool guy. He does a great show as well on YouTube. The links will be in the description. Vicious Rants. He gives his opinions about Raw and whatnot, about wrestling. And I think he's even he's like me in a way as well. He's even a well-educated wrestling fan, a very well-educated wrestling fan, and I think he's even took part in some wrestling as well, from what I've been told. I might be wrong about that, but other than that, you should go and follow him because he's just a great guy. And like I say, speaking of Big Evil, you should go and follow his fiance, Roxxie's Room. That's her YouTube show as well. Make sure you go and check that out. Again, links will be in the description. And that Roxxie girl, Roxxie's a sweet lass, educated wrestling fan, nice lass all around, and if she's listening to this, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be beating your fiance on the Beat the Clock thing. I'm very confident of that. Steve Dawson, you're next. But yeah, you should go and follow her. She's a nice lass all around, all that aside, and again, a wrestling fan, and that's the beauty. That's why I like it. Wrestling fans, wrestling matters. You know where it's at, baby. And also, while you're there, follow me on Twitter, at Tony_Walker. Follow my podcast, my Twitter site for the podcast, at WM Podcast. Facebook.com/WM Podcast as well for the Facebook page. Like the shit out of that page as well, and follow that Twitter site as well. If you want to get me on Twitter, on Facebook as well, my personal account, if you want to add me on there, that is fine. Just don't be a douchebag or don't be weird or anything like that, because I'm trying to live in the real world, and I don't know, Facebook nowadays is surrounded by complete and utter morons. But the Facebook pages, the Facebook accounts are, my private Facebook accounts are facebook.com/Anthony Walker. Let me rephrase that again. Facebook.com/The Anthony Walker. Facebook.com/The Head Anthony Walker, excuse me. Facebook.com/The Head Anthony Walker 28. Make sure if you want to add them, that's fine. Not a problem whatsoever. Again, links will be in the description. And also, XKT Babix on Twitter, at XKT Babix. Again, link will be in the description. She's an absolute diamond, an absolute sweetheart. I consider her a friend, and she's absolutely a wrestling fan also, and she loves CM Punk and whatnot. Yeah, and she's absolutely cute as well, and gorgeous. And yes, I did say that on this radio podcast. I don't know why I said national TV for, but anyway, you know where I'm going with this, ladies and gents. She's an absolute sweetheart, and hell, wrestling fan. There's not many There's not many females nowadays that like wrestling or professional wrestling in general. So the fact that she likes that, it's even awesome. It's a dream girl. I mean, it would be beautiful for me if my girlfriend would be a wrestling fan, because that make things a hell of a lot easier for me. Because well, let's just say people don't take this business very seriously. Only wrestling fans take this business very seriously. But yeah, she's an absolute diamond, and you should go and follow her, because she's a wrestling fan, and you know, she knows her stuff, and she's just awesome. She's just awesome to be around. She's just awesome to speak to on Twitter. Very awesome. Anywho, also, ladies and gentlemen, I'll put a quick plug in as well. EPW returns to Middlesbrough, Colby Newham Rainbow Leisure Centre, September 20th. It's going to be a big card, big show. I don't know who's going to be on it yet, because I haven't spoken to the boss, but once I get any information, I will let you know. And also as well, be sure to look out for 2 upcoming EPW special podcasts as well. Wrestling Matters EPW special podcasts as well. Be sure to be on the lookout for them. One took place in Durham and the other one took place in Ripon. Yeah, I will be doing a podcast on them very, very soon, so be looking out for them. Also, as well, like the promo said during the break, get this podcast now on YouTube, iTunes, Podomatic, and Stitcher Radio. That's right, I'm on Stitcher Radio now. Looking to go on Mixcloud, but I don't know, I have to check that thing out first. But other than that, it's on Stitcher Radio, YouTube, iTunes, and Podomatic. And big, huge thank you to everybody who supported the podcast. You know who you are. I could stay here all day and thank you until I'm blue in the face, but I'm not going to. Your support means a hell of a lot, and hopefully we can get this to grow. And be sure to look out in the upcoming podcast as well, upcoming Wrestling Matters podcast, because I've got Kenny Keller scheduled to be on the show, along with Sugar Shugs, his right-hand man, at the Sunday Segue. I'm going to be booking him on the show very, very soon. We're going to do a show. We're going to have some fun. Hopefully I can get them both on. If not, don't worry, I've got a replacement. I'll have a replacement lined up for Shugs as well. I made a promise to them. These two are going... This guy, the Sunday Segue crew, will be the first guest on the show. So be sure to look out for them. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about wrestling. Hopefully I'll get a little bit of an interview out the guys as well, to give you background, to give my audience a little bit of a background of what these guys are like, or what these guys are basically. But other than that, we're going to have some fun, and I'm really very much looking forward to getting down to business on that and getting things recorded. But up until then, ladies and gentlemen, I have been Anthony Walker. You have been fucking awesome. I love you all the bits, and I'm going to leave you with this podcast with a basically goodbye from wrestling and WWE in general, from me as well, to Drew McIntyre. All the best, mate. All the best, you talented wrestler. Sorry WWE didn't exploit your talent, but hopefully you leaving WWE or you getting released, hopefully things now will work out better for you and you can go on to do bigger things. Hopefully you'll come back to WWE, but you know, it's this WWE we're talking about. But until then, thanks for the memories, and I'll leave you guys with his theme song, the one that I like. So until next time, guys, I'm Anthony Walker. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans. I'll see you next time. Episode 12. Peace out. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Anthony Walker, the host of the Wrestling Matters podcast, and you can now check out the Wrestling Matters podcast on youtube.com/AJW Wrestling Matters. You can now go to Podomatic.com, iTunes, and now also you can go to a new one. That's right, a new site, Stitcher Radio. That's right, we're on Stitcher Radio right now. I'm on Stitcher Radio right now, and you could be too. Get yourself on there, download their app, the Stitcher Radio app, or the Stitcher app, whatever it is. Make sure you download their app, and you can listen to it on your phone, anywhere you want, at any time you want, at any place you want. That's the Wrestling Matters podcast now on YouTube, iTunes, Podomatic, and Stitcher Radio. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans.